So this is pretty funny, and I always think these are the kind of things you really can't make up, even if you're a professional comedian. I knew yesterday at the end of the day the kids had come over for a visit, and Karen looked at her phone to see what the weather report for tomorrow is. They said rain all day. And I said, nah, it ain't gonna rain all day. I have 2 bikes I want to test ride. And I'm feeling a little bit better, and I don't even know which one I want to ride first. And I want to determine if I need to do some work on a jetting. I just want to take a ride. I want to scuff the tires in. And so I have this giant dilemma today. And I go to bed thinking, the weatherman can't be right. It's going to be a bright sunny day. It's my lucky day. I'm going to hit the lottery. I don't buy tickets. I'm excited as can be. I wake up and I see a little bit of sun peeking through the window, and I open up the shade just a little bit, and it's pouring rain. It's pouring. It's the story of my life. But as I look over the work we did yesterday on the RD, and what an upgrade. Wow. Those exhausts were really overdue. They're like me. They were a little overdue for an upgrade, I guess. And I don't even know this is I've never in my whole life had 2 bikes ready for a test ride. And I thought, it can't rain today. There's no way it's going to rain. It's going to rain all day. So everything's on hold here in Pancakeville. The good news is I can sit out here for an extra 10 minutes and oogle these bikes. Because on a rainy day, oogling is important. So there's always a real test of when spring is in the air. And the fish are starting to get ready to eat. Probably a day or 2 they'll be ready. Maybe they're ready to eat right now. I don't know. I got the bubblers going, and I got the fish, and I took the fish food out of the freezer. All we're waiting for is for the rain to stop. But as I said before, you never have too much oogling time. And boy, you know, one of the things I thought about, Turbo Steve had a great idea. I'm not sure when I'm going to get to do it, but Steve, I accept your challenge here. Maybe John Pothier will help me. We had a great idea. Actually, it was Steve's idea. To take this bike and try to make a little photo show out of, you know, before and after. What it looked like before we did the work on it. And I'm going to think about how I want to do that in the next couple days. I'll talk to John about it even. And I had a personal thing I was going to try to do. And picking up on what Steve suggested, I have all this treasure trove of old photos and old videos now on those discs. I wish I could do a photo show from the day I bought this bike, all the modification and evil twin steps it went through over the years. And I mean, I'm just hitting the high points here of that we did do wheels. We did do, I had at least 3 other sets of bars on the bike, lower and different heights. And we had, at one time, Kenny Augustine was still alive then. He made me a set of heads for this bike that wound up burning a hole in a piston. They were so good. We had a great adventure with Joe Roselli and Charlie out there on our way to a 2-stroke meetup. We have the shocks from Luciano. I did all the polishing and all of the stuff. I had all the exhaust pipes that are now ready for a refinish. And I'm sure I'm going to be able to do a really experimental, really hot finish on those pipes over the next winter. And maybe that's something that we can, you know, share with other people. I don't know. But just looking at every one of these, and now that the list is complete. Every bike here has had more than one life. So they are truly evil twins. They have been one bike, and then they have been another bike, and the latest, as of yesterday, we have, the next time this goes out on the road, which if it ever stops raining, or we ever build an ark or whatever, this is truly, he's added his name to the list of evil twins. And remembering the other evil twin operations of the both of the big Yamahas have been Ferrari bikes, and how much we enjoyed that. In all of the things I've done, we probably had the most fun convincing people they were real Ferraris. In fact, this used to always be my favorite thing. Show them the flag. Of course it's a Ferrari. And we had our other Suzuki that became this Suzuki. And actually, I do have 2 titles. I could make another bike out of that with very little effort.
I just don't think I have the time left in my life to wear out 2 GSs, but I would never sell it or get rid of it, because the day you need a part, here's the whole thing with a parts bike, the day you need a part and you can't buy it on eBay and nobody, I remember Tim on his GS, he hit a pothole and dented the front wheel, and nobody had a reasonably priced front wheel. So when I think about it, or I think of Joe Padula when he had that leaky gas tank. He bought this exact bike, and if you could just go out on the internet and buy another gas tank with a paint match and it didn't leak, but a lot of times you can't do that. So that's the whole idea of having a parts bike. And this was my track bike for many years, and I have I think more than 2 sets of bodywork for this and an extra set of wheels. And Luciano was over here one day, we had a starting issue, and he says, oh, just take the starter out of the parts bike. I forgot I had a starter. And bingo! 2 bolts later, it's really handy if you can afford to have a parts bike. And the neat thing about a parts bike, you can always get one so cheap it's ridiculous, because they always have one that the guy doesn't have a title for, or who the hell knows what. Or there's some giant thing that has to be fixed, or he's crashed it, but everything else is good, and they're usually a steal. So as long as I'm out here oogling and trying to duck raindrops and see if the fish are ready to be fed, one other thing. Our friend in Kansas, Scott, and he's a school teacher, he's now laid off and doing a restoration on a GS. And he sent me some pictures. He's having some real good luck. Had a little bit of a tune-up issue with the spray gun. Got that working. Got his first color on. Put the second coat on. And he wasn't happy. And he got kind of upset. He sent me a couple emails, a couple of pictures. And he asked me, do I ever change my mind? Well, I want to be honest with it. I want to be honest with everybody. I change my mind every 15 minutes sometimes. When I was laying out this paint job, and I had a picture in my mind of what I wanted, and if I took that picture and flipped it to right now, well, it's totally different, because all along the way, and I'll just give you an example, John Pothia laid out that lettering 100 different ways, and not only the lettering, we moved it further back, further to the forward, did something else, and here's another example. When I originally did this bike, this part was green. When I made it black, it adds a different look to the bike. I kind of like the way that worked out. I had 2 seats for the bike, and I did one. I chopped out all the foam and made it real low, and didn't like it. Put the original seat back on. But the point is, with any restoration, if you're going to make it a custom bike, you're probably somewhere in the course of it going to change your mind, and that's perfectly okay. And when you watch TV and you see Chip Foose or Bitchin' Rides, and he does those concept sketches, yeah, but I think the reality, I think they redo the van and then they make the concept sketch. Now, the reason I say that is, I was going to do this today because I'm landlocked here and I can't ride, so I'm going to try to hit on some of the other things that I can share that I think are worthwhile. But here, as I'm oogling here, one of the things, and let's be honest, this bike, I started out with some concept sketches. And I went weeks back and forth with John on the concept sketches. Then I spent weeks trying to get the right kind of gold paint. Then I called Karen in to verify that I had painted a piece of glass with 12 different kind of gold paint. Which one should we use? And she didn't like any of them. And so I kept looking. I finally wound up with the gold that we have on here now. But the point is, and it's for Scott's benefit that I'm saying this, the thing is fluid right up to the point you put the clear on. It could change at the last minute. And I originally thought cutting this lettering out with an X-Acto knife, and it was okay. But Thomas Luciano's laser cut stuff is certainly better. And we learned every step of the way. And I'm always happy because of YouTube that I'm able to share that conveniently. And one final thing I always tell people, if you're modifying a motorcycle, and Luciano and I have talked about this and we totally agree, if you're going to change something on a motorcycle, and you can just either repaint it or put it back the way it was. You'll always be better off than a guy who takes and cuts the back of the frame off, or the worst thing is to throw the original parts away. See, here's another good example. If when I put the tune pipes on here, if I said, oh, I'll never use them again, and put them right in the trash or sell them on eBay for $10, which is what a lot of people do. There's a lot of people, and Luciano, when he bought his ZX-10, there was a guy on the internet put a custom pipe on it and sold him the exhaust system for 20 bucks. And you know what? When you need it, 10 years later, you can't find it anywhere at any price. Now, I picked up a set of wheels for this, thinking it'd be a day I'd want to have an extra set of wheels. Yeah, and I will have because of the parts bike in the back, I have an extra set of wheels for the GS. Well, on rainy days, I come out here sometime and do just what I'm doing now out loud. I look around and I try to prioritize what my projects are, what I want to polish next, what I want to paint, what I want to do, and when is that good weather coming? When is that good weather coming? So we're basically done oogling here. It's time to go make a cup of coffee and see what productive thing I can do today. Now, I ordered some stuff. I don't know if it's going to come in today. Some new tools that might be interesting to share. And again, we're landlocked here on a rainy day, and still trying to get the final little bit of getting over this illness that both Karen and I have had for, this is going on 4 weeks. Now this is usually a sign that the fish are ready to eat, so I think I'm going to throw some food in there and see if they're hungry. Now we'll find out if they're hungry. Oh yeah, they're ready to eat. Order a pizza. Get me one of those Luciano Strombolis. Look at the big mama coming. She's ready to eat. She's ready to eat. Wow. Spring is in the air. Wow, that is really a true sign of spring. Here we are at a rainy day and the fish are already eating for 2020. So it's a cold rainy day, and there's nothing better on a cold rainy day than a nice hot cup of coffee. Or maybe there is. Karen's making soup today. What kind of soup is this? Curry potato chowder?
Yep.
Wow, I feel like an Indian already. Whoa, I can't wait till lunchtime. So as I come into the shop, I forgot that these packages came yesterday. I didn't even open them. I'm expecting some tools. I don't know, where'd this come from? Well, you never can tell. And sometimes I open it up and there's women's underwear in there, so I don't try to get too excited about it. So I don't know where to begin here, because I don't know what these are from. Actually, the truth is, Karen and I order so much stuff. But I am waiting for some little tools, Dremel tool tools. And I always like to show the unboxing. Let's see what, oh, we got 2 packages in here. Whoa, 2 for the price of 1. All right, this is what I've been waiting for. And I think this is a significant thing we'll be able to share. These are little buffing polishing mandrels. Give you one guess where they're made. They're not made in Poland, that's for sure. But let's see what these are. Because one of the things you have when you have an RD or an air-cooled engine, you always have the edges of the fins and places you can't really buff. Now, assuming these are going to be decent quality, let's see if they're put together with a screw. Nah, it looks like a rivet. That usually means they're not good quality. But the trick with these is don't use a super high speed on a Dremel tool. And these look like they have 3/32 shafts instead of 1/8" shafts, so you need the little chuck. But here's the whole point. I want to show these. You get a bag like this for, I think these were under $10. Now, I don't know what the quality is. This is a little rougher. These are the kind that you have like a buffing wheel. You can put rouge on them. And we're going to do some experimenting, not today. Now, the reason I can't work out in the garage today, it's a sad thing that's really happening, is because the bikes are all done. I don't want to put any of them out in the rain, for sure. And I can't even move them around in such a way I have work area, a decent work area. So But what I do have time today, I can use these. I'm going to try to set up a Dremel tool, and for 10, this I think was $9, but I'm not sure. None of them were expensive because I don't buy expensive tools. There's a reason. You don't need them. Now, here, I'll share a good story with you. We have a jeweler, a friend, and he takes care of Karen's jewelry from time to time. Her stone got loose in her ring and stuff. And what he told me was very important. He's a jeweler, and he says he buys the cheap ones because no matter if you buy the cheap ones or the expensive ones, they wear out just as fast. I don't know that that's true, but Fadi's a professional jeweler. And ooh, this is what I like. You know what I look at this. Boy, we are on a buttered roll today. Wow, another $10 tool. These all came from Amazon. Where else can you buy things? From Amazon, they're made in China. Nothing you never buy from Sears Roebuck and it's made in the United States. Not happening. So anyway, not that I'm an angry person or anything. Now these are going to have some real use. Let's see if they have 1/8 inch shafts. It'll be nice if they do. And again, this is good information to share on a rainy day because these are all different grits. Oh yeah. Now when we do the GS wheels, we'll be using a lot of these. These are little buffing wheels, all different grits. Again, $10. It's a funny story. I went to Lowe's the other day before the virus, and I needed to buy a couple little polishing wheels. And I look on a shelf, and they're $7 each. I said, I don't know, these are not going to be the same quality, but I'm thinking, $7 for one, and a bag for $9, and there's all different grit. I'm going to be able to use these. Now, I'll do a little testing actually down here today. Now, we got another bag. I don't know what else is in here, but you never know in my family. I open up, there's pajamas. What? Even better. Wow. Look at this. Where does this come from the same package? Probiotic. I got probiotic in the same envelope. Can you believe that? And this is the one I really was waiting for. Now I use these during the restoration season, which pretty much is over right now. I use them like candy. I'm gonna have to set up a couple little buckets. And look at all the mandrels they give you. Wow. Now, again, I went to, and if you go online even, and you buy one little mandrel and 3 of these, it's $10. Well, this was $10, and I think there's 500 in here or something. And all different sizes, which during the restoration of anything. I'm sure Scott, because he's a woodworker, he probably has 1,000,000 of these. But anyway, so here was my point today. Rainy day, can't work out in the garage. So I'm going to set these up in some reasonable fashion here. And all these mandrels. And you always lose the screw from the mandrel or something. And these look like, they're all 3/32. So that's the only downside is they have the skinny, which when you buy a Dremel tool, it always comes with the extra mandrel anyway, but you just got to change it. Anyway, I would count the fact that everything here is probably $30. I don't have the receipt, so I don't know, but they were about $10 each. And what you could get this is even better than Harbor Freight. It's hard to believe they've out Harbor Freighted Harbor Freight. But rainy day stuff, this is a good thing. And this is the kind of stuff I like to share because a lot of people are not aware that you can even buy this stuff so cheap. They go to Lowe's and you see one thing, it's like you buy one razor blade and it's 92 cents. And then you buy a pack of 1,000 and a nickel, a penny each or something. So I always try to figure and again, I'm sharing this information because I grew up poor, no sympathy votes. I had a great childhood, but I grew up never throwing anything away, always trying to maximize, get the most cuts out of a razor, then sharpen it and then save it and don't let it rust. And yeah, if you grow up rich, you just throw it away and buy a new razor. Well, here's the thing here. You can laugh all you want about my tools being old and beat up, all stuff's come from Harbor Freight, all the But there's a bottom line. Go look at the 650 or the RD. They came out of this shop. Now just to show you how when you're old you lose your touch, I took out my old Dremel tool, and this is the real inexpensive one from Harbor Freight. Put one of the bits that I just bought, and it is an 1/8 inch. I just lost my touch. because there are some, and I ought to show, well, that's really important. These are the ones, and this is a real handy thing to have. This is from the Big Fordham tool, and you can cut ceramic and everything with it. These were $5 or $6 a piece. They're real handy, but they wear out real quick when you use them on heavy duty stuff. This is the thing I'm always laughing at. These mandrels, they're so expensive, and here you get so many. The other thing, the cutoff wheels. If you're doing Dremel tool stuff, and I know we're pretty much done with the restoration season now, but when you want to cut something, you can cut the tire off a bike with one of these. I've cut the tire off one just to show that you could do it. You can get the Harbor Freight equivalents that are about 1/10 the price. They don't seem quite as good, but they're 1/10 the price. So the reason I'm rambling on and on about this is I wound up buying, and these were really expensive. These I wound up buying the real deal ones, and trying to use them the way, here we are in a mandrel, trying to use it like to do in between the fins and stuff when I had parts down the cellar. And they were not that good, to be honest. For an expensive tool, they weren't any better than the ones I had bought that were cheap. But here's my whole point. In the day and age we live in, and this is how I've sorted these. This is how many I'd be using in the past, and here's one of the Harbor Freight ones, though it cracked, but whatever. It's not all of the little stones. As a modeler, you would automatically have this, but as a motorcycle restorer, a lot of people don't have all of this stuff. And I'm thinking people like Scott. I'm always thinking of Scott as an example. When you want to sand and grind and get in corners and angles and edges and everything, there's just some of this stuff you have to have. Now here's some of the real expensive ones, the Dremel ones. And again, you can cut the tire. In fact, next time we change your tire, I'm going to show how I cut it off. It's self-explanatory. But the bottom line is, this is a really useful tool. This tool, and it's a variable speed one too, inexpensive from Harbor Freight. But now that I've added, you can see what I had in the, and I have another bucket like this in the garage. You could add this whole thing to your itinerary for less than what the difference in price between this and a real Dremel tool. The ones that are 50, 60 bucks. Now, I got this award. I just want to show this to my modeling friends. This was Scott Smith and Steve Busso. I'm not sure if they're active. They sent me this years and years ago, and we were, as modelers, it was all carbide tools. And at the time, I didn't realize the carbide tools were sold. They were very expensive. So, but I used them, and this is probably 30 years ago. I still have the carbide tools, and they still work. So, I guess there's room in the thing that we do for expensive tools, and there's room for inexpensive tools. And sometimes having both is what you really need. And next year, when we start our restoration of major body work and whatever we're going to hoot, I don't even know what we're going to do tomorrow. So anyway, I thought this was good information to share. Information that I'm sure most of the modelers in the world know about this stuff. And I'm sure we've all had, and this is from the good old days. And that's probably $500 worth of stuff in that bucket. And this is the one from the garage. Yeah, these are the ones I use most of the time, but this, I think, was a find. I think that really is gonna, I can't wait to get a day out in the garage. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a dedicated thing on the garage, and when I can move the bikes out, I'm gonna try every one of these. I'll put that on a separate video and try to polish some of the parts. But what's gonna happen, I know some of them are gonna be really not as good as I expect, but some of them are. And that's the value, that'll be the value of that video. So some good information worth sharing, and we ran across this yesterday, polishing out the header and the muffler of the RD, and I thought this is a good time to share it. If you have a part that's chrome plated, and you know there's going to be, it's a sandwich. It's going to start with, in the case of the RD, it's going to start with steel, but it doesn't have to be steel. It can be brass, it can be copper, but there's metal. And then they always put a triple plating. And here's what happens. the top layer is the chrome, the shiny stuff that you see, and there's nickel in that sandwich. And some chromes are double plated, some are triple plated. There's brass. The reason they put brass, because they can make it nice and smooth. Then they nickel plate it usually, and then they chrome plate it, but there's other variations of that. But here's the bottom line. The chrome that's on top is what you see. You don't see these other things. So what happens if you develop a pit, and that pit goes down through the chrome? Now, what people think, they think, and I know, because I've thought of it, they think if they just polish this enough and polish, this pit is going to go away. This pit only goes away when you polish off everything and there's no more chrome left. You've polished through the chrome. Now, in reality, you could do that, but then you'd be down to bare metal, and that would rust very quickly. You'd defeat the whole purpose of the chrome. So if you understand, and I know this is a kind of basic, but here's the top layer of chrome, and there's a little pit, a big pit, a giant pit. Well, if you know you can polish that little one out, and if you take that same amount of material off, it'll still be some chrome left, but you can't get this one out. And you got to know, if you just keep grinding away, especially with those little Dremel tools that I just showed, you will grind away to where there's no more chrome left. Now, it's the same thing with chrome and with paint, or just polishing a piece of steel. Always think in your mind, how deep does that little divot go? And you've got to remove that material. You've got to be willing to grind it off and get rid of it, or else you're never going to get it. You're just defeating the purpose of doing it. So I know I ran into this yesterday with the RD. I was thinking to myself, there's some spots on the back of those mufflers. I looked at them and I ran my finger over them and I felt, oh boy, that's really deep. That's deep. Well, you can't fill it. You can't put Bondo in there. You can't put CA. You can't do much. And if you polish too much, you're going to go right down to the raw metal. And that's not good either. That makes a whole nother bunch of problems. But if you always understand, same thing with a paint scratch. Okay, new piece of paper. Same thing with paint. If you have, here's the metal, here's the primer, here's the base coat, and this is the clear. So if you have a scratch that goes down here, well, the differences with paint, sometimes you're lucky enough, you can fill the divot in, and the way to do it is make it a little bit every day for a week. Just fill that like so. And then assuming you have enough clear on here, you could block sand that clear down, and you can make that almost go away. Not always, but I've watched professional people do it on YouTube, and I've seen amazing results that they've had. I've tried doing it, and about 90% of the time, when I go back 3 days later, 4 days later, I go, where did I fix that? I couldn't even find it. But the trick is, and if you have that divot, I'm just going to make a suggestion. Fill it with paint, let it dry overnight. Fill it with paint, let it dry overnight. Don't just put a big glob on, because it's gonna melt the paint here, and it's not gonna dry down. Paint doesn't dry if you put it on too thick. If you leave the cap off a thing of paint, it'll just dry on the top and make a skin. But this paint didn't dry. So the reason I'm sharing this information is a lot of people, like our friend Scott, and other people that are very interested in high quality finishing. If you understand the basics of what has to happen to do these things, you got a real good shot at having success. When you miss the boat on even one of these, it's very frustrating. Now here's the bottom line of why this day I think the information we have shared is worthwhile. This is the extra exhaust system I have for the GS, stock exhaust system. And I did spend, I know it's on one of the previous videos, I spent some time trying to get most of the pits out of it. And I got most of them. I've got 90% of them out. But if we don't have some better weather soon, I'm going to use all those Dremel tools and make a dedicated video of doing this. Or if I ever can take one of the bikes out of the garage and move things around. You see, the nice thing about detailing out a bike, with those Dremel tools, you can get in areas you can't get with your, it's like the painting stick. Same thing, but Having a spare exhaust system, as you've seen in the last day or so, if you're a follower of the channel, having it on the RD, now I have a whole winter to decide what I want to do with those tune pipes, and I'm going to be talking to Dave Midgley about making up that custom Huntsman resin is high temperature resin. It goes to 500 degrees. That exhaust doesn't. That exhaust, no part of it gets above 350. I know from making model airplane exhausts. 2-cycle exhausts are a lot cooler than 4-cycle exhausts by about 100 degrees. Now, what's good is, and I thought about this, having some coats of that resin on there, if it can be painted on like paint, maybe 4 or 5 coats and sanded between coats, it would mean I'd be able to buff out the finish, make it like the finish on the R1, and it'd have some black. So you can put black dye in any epoxy, even as 5-minute epoxy. And we have black dye, so this is going to be, over the winter, that's definitely right at the top of the project list to see what I can learn from that project. And if I don't learn anything, sometime you don't learn anything. But I hope the information I shared today is useful and lets you at least understand some of the basic things, like Scott is in the beginning of his restoration and learning about paint. If you understand some of these basics, you have a real good shot at success. And I know, because when I was a young kid, when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, and I started building model planes or whatever, and when other people that were more skilled than I was, like Harold Price, John DeTavio, just to name a few, they would show me how to use a razor blade, how to get rid of a brush mark with rubbing compound, how to do the basic thing. Basic skills are always worth having. Always worth having. So anyway, and this is I got the whole exhaust system sitting in a cellar, so it doesn't have any more tendency to rust anymore, because this is a part. Good luck if you're trying to buy it. Good luck, and I hope you got a big wallet. Anyway, hope you did enjoy the video. Even though we didn't get a whole lot done in the garage today, I think we did share some good information. And on days like this, when I'm recovering from being sick, almost recovered, well, I hope this is a lingering thing. Anyway, thanks for watching. Now, I thought I'd, right at the end of this, show another reason why I love the whole concept of evil twins. Now, this is a little photo show of GS pictures and how the GS has evolved over the years. Here we have the West Cooley paint job, the bodywork on, and here we have that tail section that I made when my back was bad, and the carbon fiber exhaust system made with Huntsman resin, which we're going to try to think of some way of using that on the RD exhaust that we have, and we have 4 of them, and up by the Bear Mountain area with the West Cooley paint job and steel mufflers. In the fall, I love the pictures in the fall. These are always my favorites. And over the years, the evil twin concept has evolved. And right now, as I said on the other video, basically all the bikes are evil twins. And I know a lot of people, boy, I wish I was getting better. An awful lot of people buy a bike, change the muffler out, change something else, and then leave it, throw the old parts in the garbage. Well, today I've tried to add some food for thought to that, and also for having a part bike. And those mufflers, by the way, they lasted about 9 years, and I eventually had a problem with them, and it had nothing to do with the mufflers. It was me. I will not go any further than that. Chris knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, luckily I have 3 exhaust systems, so that was a safe bet. But the whole point here, the reason I'm looking at these, I'm thinking to myself, and here we had the silver wheels at that time, the carbon exhausts, and as you look back, it really was several bikes. It really just wasn't one bike. It was several bikes. And when you look at all the rides we went on and all the places we've been, and I remember, looking at that seat reminds me of when I had 11 months of therapy on my back. Every ride was a painful ordeal, but it got me through. And I remember the time when I had a luggage rack on the back of the bike and Karen was riding with me. Well, when her back went bad, that was the end of her riding. But she did enjoy it for many years, and it's just a long story. And you know, the funny thing is, the GS has been with me for the whole basically my whole adult life, I guess. Maybe I haven't been an adult as long as I think I have. But
But I always like to look back at these pictures. I always like to share them. It seems like most of my friends have similar interests, or they do enjoy seeing the old pictures and remembering all the things we used to do years ago, and then when the leaves were changing orange. And this, as I always say, this part of the country is just fabulous. It's beautiful for a good part of the year. Not beautiful today. It's pouring rain out there today. And by the way, all that information about the Dremel tool, I'm going to spend some time polishing some of the parts on this motor that are not polished yet. And I always enjoy that. And so if we do, we got a lot of interesting stuff coming up in the next year, and some nice rides. And I hope you'll be on board for the whole adventure, whether it rains, whether it snows, whether the leaves turn orange, or if we get so old our teeth just all fall out. Thanks for watching.